Okay, what's this?
This is it's a cyclone. It actually separates, so when the material goes through our hammer mill, it actually is evacuated by air. So we have a fan that sucks the material right to the top of this 60-foot cyclone, and then the air continues on, and the material drops down in the cyclone.
Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine visits the cyclone today, and a whole lot more. For more than a decade, I've used a pellet stove in my basement. For more than a decade, I've wondered, how do they make these things? What goes into them? Why this shape? Why do some stay together and burn better than others? This is part of Maine's forest products industry that didn't even exist 10 years ago. What happened? I've got so many questions, and I'm going to Corinth Pellets to get the answers. Anyone who's traveled up Route 15 through Corinth has seen the sign marking the entrance to the plant. A lot of local folks go in there to buy their own pellets. We'll kick off the new year and the January heating season by getting the whole tour. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. Mark Parent is General Manager of Corinth Pellets. If I'm going to understand how pellets are made, I guess I'll start right there at the top. Mark, welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Bob, thanks for having me.
I bought a pellet stove 10 years ago, and back then nobody in Maine made pellets. Now there's at least, 4 manufacturers in the state?
Yeah, there's 4 different manufacturers scattered all in the state.
Yep, and the closest one to the greater Bangor area is right here in Corinth.
Yes, we are. We're located right in Corinth, Maine. We've been here about 7 years and been a growing business ever since.
Right from the beginning, I always wanted to buy Maine-based pellets because I want to spend my money close to home where it helps the economy. And when I first got my pellet stove over a decade ago, there was nobody making them. I think my pellets came from New Hampshire, and that always kind of bothered me.
Well, that's definitely not a good situation for us. I think a lot of people are in the same boat you are, that they'd rather support the local economy, and we're hoping people will do that with us as well.
It took a while for pellets to start being made in Maine, but of course there are 4 now. What is the history of pellet making at this particular location? Started 7 years ago.
Yeah, this location started 7 years ago, and it kind of got off to a slow start. Pellet making is a little more art than science. Yeah. It's kind of a mixture of different wood and drying techniques, and if you change any one of those, it kind of really affects the quality of the pellet and the quality of the finished product. So it's kind of a learning process.
And you don't even know that it's affected the quality until about a few months down the road and they start falling apart.
That's true. The durability can really make a big difference.
Well, there had to be growing pains. I mean, everybody's had growing pains. I know some of your competitors had growing pains.
I think everybody in the industry has.
Yeah, well, and you're right. It's you got to get all this stuff to stick together without deteriorating for a period of time, and that's not easy to do.
No, it's not. There's a lot of factors, and pellets aren't rocket science, but there is some art to it. And the cleaner the feedstock is that comes in, the cleaner the pellets are. Less ash, less bark you can put in them, the better. And none is the best situation.
Mm-hmm. For a long time, suppliers also seemed to have trouble keeping up with demand. There was a real boom in pellet stoves a decade ago, back when we weren't even making them. It was sometimes hard to get product at some of the local stores, and now I look in your yard here, and it's pellets as far as the eye can see.
Well, we've experienced a big gain in production over the last few years. 3 years ago, the company made 9,000 tons of pellets. Kind of struggled with availability of feedstock and not running 24/7 or even at all in the summertime. So last year, we increased the production. We went to 33,000 tons of pellets last year, and our feedstock got a lot more consistent. Mm-hmm. Even at that level, we didn't feel like it was the number we were looking for, so we did a major upgrade here on the property and put a new drying system from a company right in Presque Isle, Maine, called PDI, or Player Design. We've got a state-of-the-art dryer and wet biomass burner now, and we should be capable of close to 90,000 tons of pellets this year.
Wow. So that's a fairly rapid increase over a short period of time.
Yeah, we've pretty much capable of 10 times the production we were just 2 years ago.
That's got to have its growing pains, too.
It certainly does. There's a lot to it. And,
yeah. I mean, that's just handling a whole lot of raw material that you weren't handling 2 years ago.
That's right. Yeah. For every ton of pellets, it takes a little over 2 tons of in-feed product. So.
Yeah. Now, what is your feedstock?
Primarily spruce chip and spruce sawdust that we get from local suppliers. We've got a lot of local guys right from around here that truck in product from various mills around the area, Dover, Jackman, Masardis, and we also get some chip from a few chip plants locally.
I think what's exciting about that is we're using the residue of some other Maine-made products and continuing to extract value from it to promote the local economy and also to heat our homes with it.
Yeah, sure.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, they call it the residuals market, and it used to be non-existent. They used to literally bury the sawdust out back and not use it, and now we're putting to use, and it's a major source of income for the mills actually.
And I mean, we're now using really just about the entire tree. When it comes out of the woods these days, there's a market for every piece of that tree.
There sure is. We take all the clean sawdust and chip we can get to make pellets out of, and there's even a market for the bark, and there's a market for everything now.
Yep. Softwood versus hardwood. What's the magic formula?
Well, people are. It's hard to convince them on what the right way is to think about this because they've got this background in wood stoves, and they've always burned hardwood, and softwood's no good. And as far as pellets are concerned, the major difference in the types of wood is how much moisture is in it. Softwood has a higher percentage of moisture, so it's a less dense wood. But by the time you dry it to, under 5% moisture, whether it's hardwood or softwood, it's really the same. Wood fiber is wood fiber once you take the moisture out.
Does it have as much pitch content or sap or whatever that would give you more BTUs?
It does. Actually, softwood has a higher BTU content than hardwood. Yeah, and it burns hotter, and we do a lot of work with the University of Maine right here. Dr. Bob Rice is head of the Wood Sciences Department, and he's been a good partner for us to get some of this information from. And he's done tours here with his classes and whatnot. So he's been a good resource. And he says there are differences, but you really need a full-scale lab to be able to tell them. So it's minute differences between hardwood and softwood once it's dry. I'll
confess, I probably have the same mindset. I'd always put a hardwood log into my wood stove. Why on earth would I put a softwood pellet into my pellet stove?
Yeah.
It's just a different mindset.
It is totally different. The good thing about softwood is generally it comes from sawmills. The sawdust that comes from sawmills is very clean, so the bark content's very, very, very low, less than 0.5%. So the ash tends to be a lot lower in clean softwood pellets.
Sawdust basically from sawmills, but is it mixed with anything else?
It's not mixed with anything but wood. We use some wood chip and some sawdust, but
so you've got to augment your feedstock a little bit. It's not just sawdust.
It's not just sawdust. We get some wood chip as well, and depending on how the wood market's going at the time, it costs us a little more money to process the chip. We have to run it through an extra process to get it down to the right size, but it's usable.
I think if there's any good news here in the economy, it is that the pulp mills may be going south a little bit, but the sawmills are actually doing okay. So it looks like your feedstock is pretty safe for a while.
Well, we're hoping so. Sure, it would make a big difference to us if anything negative happened to the sawmills locally. They're a big part of what we do, and we're glad to support them by buying their residuals.
And now that you've increased by about tenfold over just a couple of years, can you get enough sawdust?
Sure, it's all there's a lot of different places to get sawdust and wood chips, so we just tend to drop them a little further if we have to. It increases your trucking costs a little bit, but you got to have this feedstock to be able to make the pellets.
As things were playing out 10 years ago, as manufacturers were starting to get into the business, the complaints you would get are things like clinkers, moisture, excessive ash. My experience is a lot of that's been cleaned up and people are getting good at making pellets these days.
Oh, that's exactly right. It's like I said before, it's more of an art than a science, I guess, making pellets. And some constants are always there. You need clean feedstock and you need consistent moisture. If you have those two things, and you can get a really low ash pellet. The industry standard for ash is less than 1%. None of the manufacturers in Maine are even close to that. We're all somewhere, less than 0.75% of ash, or even lower, 0.5% sometimes.
And there actually is an industry standard. There's a Pellet Fuels Institute.
There is.
Most bags, I don't know if yours do, I haven't even looked, but most bags actually have the content measurements based on the Institute standards right on the bag.
They do, and the bags are they're not all the same. Some are different, and it's kind of a generalization that people put on the bags to give you an idea what the average moisture and BTU content it is and ash content.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Mark Parent is my guest. We're in his office at Corinth Pellets, and we're about to see exactly how pellets are made, or at least how these pellets are made. Not all pellets are the same, and I can't tell them apart just by looking at them. So when we get back in a moment, I'll be asking Mark if he can look into a bag of pellets from anywhere in North America and know whether he's seeing trouble. Stand by. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're on location today in Corinth, home of Corinth Pellets. Before this pellet plant was ever operating, I bought tons of pellets. I loved the ones I bought in my first 2 years of pellet stove ownership. Then that out-of-state manufacturer couldn't keep up with demand, and I switched to a brand that I hated for 2 years. For the last 6 years, it's been kind of up or down. I can't tell the difference by just looking at pellets if they're really good or not. Fortunately, I've got an expert right here, Mark Parent, General Manager of Corinth Pellets. Is there a sign of a good pellet? Can you open up bags from all over America, let's say, look inside the bag and say, oh, these are crap?
Well, there are differences. You can tell basically you want to see a good shiny gleam on the outside of the pellet, kind of like the coating that holds it together, the lignins that come from the inside of the wood. Bind it together, and if you see a good hard pellet, it'll be nice and durable, and there'll be less fines in the bag. You know, by the time you transport the pellets, the sawdust kind of shakes off the end of the pellets, and if you're not don't have a real durable pellet, it'll make more dust inside your bag, which nobody likes, obviously.
Yeah. So you could open a bag, look at all the dust, and say, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, low durability, and probably going to be a high ash pellet, probably.
Yeah. This is just a guess, but I'll bet pellet manufacturers get blamed for a lot of stuff that isn't their fault.
Well, I think it's like that in every industry.
Well, it is. But I'm thinking about people who complain about too much moisture because their pellets disintegrated on them. And yes, they left them out there in the rain for days on end and wonder what went wrong.
They certainly don't do well in the rain. They'll blow right up and turn right back into sawdust. Yeah. But if you keep them dry up on a pallet and just a regular plastic cover over the top is usually all you need. And they'll last quite a while. They can last a few years.
I burned them long before that, so I haven't really had any complaints about that. I have had some bags in the old days. In the old days, some of the bags were thinner mill than they are now. They used to rip open a little bit too easily. Even when I was just trucking them around, I would leave a whole pile on the floor.
Yeah, bag quality is a big concern. Most of the manufacturers around have gone to a standard. It's a 3.5 mil bag, they call it, and it's they're pretty durable. The only wild card is the side sealer that actually creates the bag here at the plant. Sometimes we've had issues, but we usually catch them and fix them before they actually go out.
Yeah. Now, as you can tell, I have been burning for a while because I've got all these old complaints that I don't have anymore.
Yeah, that hasn't happened in years, Bob, but thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, really. Let's relive the old time, shall we? There are probably people who don't clean their stove as much as they want to or should, and as a result, the stoves don't burn as well. They don't get as much BTU value out of it. They get more ash. The problem isn't the pellets. The problem is you got to clean them now and then.
The stove's got to be clean. Yeah. The airflow has to be right. Airflow is one of the most important factors in how well your stove burns. And, different stoves do have different characteristics on, what type of pellets they like to burn or what type they burn better. So there's some adjustment. But generally, if you have a good quality pellet, it'll burn in any stove.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you get blamed for that isn't your fault? Anything?
Sometimes we've actually had customers say that we had certain things inside the bags that got wedged in their augers or whatnot, and it was just like safety pin, and you couldn't find a safety pin within 100 miles of this plant. It's just one of those things that just definitely wasn't in the bag. So,
you also produce, I see from your website, kitty litter and animal bedding. It's another byproduct in the processing.
Sure, a lot of people use pellets for kitty litter, and we make a product that's actually a little finer than regular pellets for kitty litter, and we also make 100% softwood horse bedding. Horse bedding can only be a softwood, 100% softwood product. There's properties in the hardwood that is not good for a horse, and we do make a bedding for horses.
Yeah. So once again, we're using the whole tree.
We can, yeah, and it's it's not a big market here in Maine. There's a lot of people in the south that have big horse farms that use bedding pellets, and it's a great product if you can. It's a little more expensive, obviously, than some of the alternatives, but it works great.
How far do your products go? When you put them on a truck, what's the most distance any one of those trucks ever goes?
We ship quite a few loads to New York.
Yeah.
At some point it becomes trucking becomes more expensive than the rate of return, so it's not any further than that gets tough. There's some people that use rail lines to ship pellets with. It's a good option.
Mm-hmm. One big challenge to using Maine renewable resources to heat homes is that demand is fluctuating so much based on the prices of oil and the availability of gas. Pellets are really so stable. The feedstock's going to stay stable. The manufacturing process is predictable. So you're really at the whim of what's happening to the other energy prices.
It has a big effect on us, obviously, and you can't blame the consumer for going for the best deal. It affects us. Oil prices don't really affect us that much. We have the same production costs no matter what the oil prices are, and you can't blame the consumer for doing, I guess, what they need to do to save the most money. I think even at these low prices, though, if somebody really did an analysis based on pellet heat versus oil, we're still, at worst case scenario, we're even with oil, and on the good side, we're ecologically friendly, and we're made here in Maine, and we're hoping that people take that into account when they're making their choices.
Yeah, when you're making the long-term decisions, does anyone think oil prices are going to crater even more than they have? Probably not. And yet you get, it says right on your bag, about, 2 1/3 gallons of oil is replaced by 1 bag of pellets. That's roughly an equivalent price of oil as it is right now at one of its historical lows.
Yeah, it is. And that's based on the math we've done here and with the University of Maine. That's the calculation we've come up with to figure about what the value is of a bag of pellets.
So anyone who's even been thinking about switching out to wood pellets as a heating source as opposed to oil, it's even a deal right now at historical low oil prices. It's just hard to get motivated when you're paying only $2 a gallon for oil.
That's the thing. Is it worth? There's a little extra labor involved in pellet stoves, and they do have new in-home boiler systems now that are fully automatic, and they're really no more work than an oil burner would be. Kettle makes an excellent one.
I've seen that one. That is just, I want one.
We do a lot of work with Interphase Energy down in the Portland area, and they have all kinds of dealers up here that install it. It's a great system. The state of Maine is still offering a rebate on them as well, because the state knows that they support any pellet usage supports Maine businesses. So I think it's a good program. Yeah,
in fact, anyone who looked at pellet stoves 10 years ago needs to look again, because the upgrades of what they can do has changed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. These fully automatic boilers are literally no more work than an oil burner.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think we already touched on is that pellet prices are likely to stay very stable. Oil prices go up and down. That'll drive you crazy. You prepay and then find out the price dropped, or the dealer accepts a lot of prepays and then finds out the cost has gone up. I pity all those people who get into that fluctuating market.
Yeah.
But pellets stay the same.
A lot of our costs are pretty stable. We have feedstock, the wood fiber. It doesn't change a lot, not like oil does. It's not really a global market right here in Maine, so it kind of stays stable, and it's predictable.
Yeah, people may be a little put off by having to carry a 40-pound bag and stock it up. Deal with the ash every now and then, but I tell you, there's nothing like having that flame warming the house in front of you. It's a warm sensation. It
is a nice thing to sit around the fire, and if you're used to doing wood stove type fire, pellets are quite a bit easier than a wood stove, and pellets are a lot more neat and easier to handle than firewood, and I think you can just put a bag in and let it burn for a full day. You only have to check it daily, really.
Well, my pellet stove is in the basement. I've just rearranged the rec room down there in order to get all the furniture around it, so I can spend the winter nestled up in my basement next to my pellet stove, because it's the place to be in winter.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
All right, can you show me around?
Sure, let's take a walk.
I'm at Corinth Pellets. Mark Parent is general manager, and we're about to get the tour. Maine is the most forested state in the nation. If any state should be heating homes with wood products, we're the one. This is where the magic happens, Corinth Pellets. It'll take a moment to get out to the yard. So what say you meet us there in about 3 minutes? You're listening to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and the station is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. I am in Corinth, standing outside a wood pellet mill, Corinth Pellets. You might even use these pellets yourself. Lots of people now stay warm with pellets. As we start the tour, here's what I'm looking at. There is a long, straight entrance to the plant with a scale in the middle. Incoming delivery trucks will get weighed there. Sawdust is coming from sawmills all around the region. Clean wood chips are coming in from other operations. Just beyond the scale, there's a ramp. This state-of-the-art ramp tilts the entire trailer to a 45-degree angle, dumping the cargo into a big pile at the base, where it is scooped up and dumped onto a bigger pile of feedstock. Behind me is a big red shed, a very big red shed. There are conveyor belts running out of it, leading to a huge rotating drum. On the near end of the drum, a smokestack is belching white vapor. Here, there's also attached a heating plant that will dry the sawdust in the rotating drum before it's processed further. Beyond that, there are machines and stacks that take the now dry feedstock, further pound it into the right size, and slowly convey it into the production plant. Inside, there are 4 pellet-making machines churning out the finished product. I'll describe that when we get inside. Right now, I just got to get a better idea of exactly what I'm seeing out here in the yard, and fortunately, standing right next to me is Mark Parent. All right, we're outside in the yard. What am I looking at?
Well, right now in front of us here, we've got a W.T. Gardner and Sons truck dumping some clean spruce chip. And we got a new Aeroflex truck dump that picks up the whole truck and dumps that out on our concrete pad, which we just completed last month. The chip comes from various chipping operations around the state. This one comes from the Gardner boys. Once the truck dumps, the loader operator will put it in our pile of clean chip, and then it'll be ready to continue down the line into our process.
Yep, so he'll dump it right there, and then it gets moved to the big pile.
Exactly.
Do you have to spend a lot of time moving all these piles around?
There's a lot of moving, removing, and rehandling. The less the better, but you kind of have to do what you got to do to have enough product to make pellets out of, obviously.
Yep. Now, when I look here in the yard, there's all these clean wood chips right in front of us. Then there's all the dark stuff back over there. So what's that?
That was basically residue from our construction when we put in our new, we've just paved our road here about a couple weeks ago and finished a big concrete pad. And that's just kind of residue that got mixed in the construction process. So if it gets contaminated at all, we just set it aside and don't use it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Once the chip is on our pad, we introduce it into our resizing system. We have a rechipper and screener here that separates big chip from small chip. The more consistent the chip size is, the easier it is to dry. So when it comes in, it ranges from 1 inch to 3 inch chip. And once it goes through our resizing process here, we can get it to about 3/4 of an inch is about the consistent uniform size.
Yep, so it's a typical screening process where if it's too big, it doesn't fall through the screen. You scrape it up, chop it up.
Yep, exactly.
The right size, okay.
Yep, it goes right through a rechipper, precision rechipper that then feeds it into our sawdust barn, and from that point we mix our what we call rechip material with some clean spruce sawdust and a little bit of hardwood sawdust that we get from some local suppliers, and that's what we make our blended pellets out of.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of softwoods besides spruce. Do you really use exclusively spruce, or is there a little pine, hemlock, or anything else in there?
No, we get about 60% of our product is spruce. We get about 10% pine, 10% hemlock, and then the rest is hardwood.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
From the inside of the barn, we have a in-feed conveyor that feeds our dryer. The conveyor runs at a seemingly slow speed, but can introduce up to 20 tons of material in a half hour, so about 40 tons an hour.
And so this is the sawdust barn that we're walking into right now?
Yes, it is, yep.
Okay. There's conveyor belts running above it. Where is that going?
The conveyor belt leads right into the dryer.
Okay.
So that carries all our wet product into our 45 million BTU dryer.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to know what it is we're looking at, think of a huge salt shed on the edge of town, only bigger with wood chips.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put over 500 tons of wood chips inside the barn, so we can pre-mix material if we need to, or keep it dry if it's really raining out. It was a bigger problem in previous years, having different moisture material, but last year we put in a brand new drying system, and now we pretty much can dry a snowbank if we want to.
But drying it would cost you money. I would think the issue would be you've got all the wood out there getting wet. It's a rainy day when we're here, and you got to get that dry. You can do it through the dryer, but there's a big pile right now. So you would typically do it through the dryer, but the drier that stuff is going in, the less expense in drying it.
Well, that's right. Our dryer does run very economically. We have wet fuel. It's actually a bark chip burner that burns a very cost-effective fuel, but it still does cost more money. So the drier, the better, obviously. Typically, it comes in around 48% moisture.
Okay, so what's this guy doing right now? He's moving piles into different piles.
Yeah, this is Clayton, our loader operator right now. He's driving a 544K from Nortrax, John Deere, and he's adding product to our drag chain conveyor, which is our in-feed system.
Mm-hmm. So anything over there just gets sucked right in?
Yep, it just travels, it drags it right onto a cross conveyor, which puts it on our incline conveyors, which leads right into our dryer.
So we just step right back outside, and I'm going to guess this is the dryer.
This is the dryer. It's very similar to your household clothes dryer. It's just a big drum with some flights inside that turns very slowly. Turns about 30 RPM, so about a revolution per 2 seconds. And there's also, so it does have some flighting inside that moves the material forward, but the primary way that the material flows through the dryer is through a big fan. We have a 400 horsepower fan which pressurizes the system, and it's actually like a vacuum right through there.
Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't matter what the manufacturing process is. If you see a stack that's belching a lot of white stuff, that's steam, not smoke, right?
You are 100% correct. That's one of the big mistakes that people make all the time. And when we're drying wood from 50% moisture down to about 10%, it releases a lot of liquid.
Which is what it's doing right in front of us right now, because it's just belching white steam.
It is. And the rainy conditions don't help. Obviously, it adds a little moisture, but it's steam is very different than smoke, and it makes a big difference when it's wet out.
Okay, where is the raw material going in, and what's the product coming out on which end?
So the raw material comes in on the right-hand side of the drum right here.
Yep.
Wet sawdust. Right now, it's going in at about 30 tons an hour. As it goes through the dryer, it gets lighter and drier, obviously, and we're getting about 15 tons an hour out of the end of it. Mm-hmm. This drum is capable of over 20 tons an hour, but at this time, we're not running at that rate.
Okay, why not?
At the end of the process, there's a hammer mill that hammers it down. So these chips that are going in are some sawdust and some chip that's up to 3/4 of an inch in diameter. The hammer mill hammers it down to a finer pellet-ready material, which is measured more in millimeters than it is in inches. It's anywhere from 1 millimeter up to as much as 5 millimeters, but the percentage of 5 millimeter particles is very low.
I'm going to take another wild-ass guess here and say that you have the advantage of being able to regulate the speed of your production to meet the market demands. So if you've got a huge demand, you can ramp up fast. If you've got a slow period, you can sort of tamp down a little bit and just meet demand as it happens.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing, and we've been trying to stockpile a little bit of material here because we want to make sure we can supply everything that the consumer is looking for in the Bangor area and beyond. It's been a very warm fall, so demand hasn't been great so far, but we know it'll be a Maine winter here soon.
Exactly. If it turns out this winter is like last year's winter, you may have to ramp up again.
We're all praying for a cold, hard winter here at Corinth Pellets.
That's right. Yeah, ski areas, pellet makers, they're the ones rooting for a bad winter.
Yeah, ski areas want snow, we just want cold.
Yeah. Mark Parent is general manager at Corinth Pellets. we're getting the tour. This is how wood pellets are made. And it starts with good old-fashioned Maine wood, sawdust, and wood chips that would otherwise go to waste, but nowadays makes a great fuel. The good stuff goes into that bright, shiny pile over there. The bad stuff is actually piled right over here, and they can use this barky stuff as fuel to dry the good stuff. Call it Yankee ingenuity, but Maine's forest products industry is getting really good at not wasting any part of the tree. Still to come, now that it's dry, it's going to be hammered into the right size, fit into the plant, and pressed into pellet shape. We'll take a look at how it's done when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket, with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today, I'm with Mark Parent, General Manager of Corinth Pellets. I heat with pellets, and I've always wondered how this Maine wood product is actually made. So we're taking the tour. We've moved past the sawdust piles and the huge dryer.
So this bin right here that we're looking at is just an in-feed bin, and you can see this product doesn't look like our clean sawdust product. This is actually a bark product that we burn in our burner.
Okay.
So we don't waste clean wood chip and sawdust to burn to make heat. So we'll make all our heat with a bark burner that comes from, again, PDI up in Presque Isle, Maine. And it's been a good savior for us. Our previous system was a clean fuel burner that burned pellet ready material, so it was kind of like, making taking 10 tons of pellet ready material and just burning it to make heat. Didn't make much sense.
No, they didn't. So you can use this stuff, which you would not go into pellets.
Exactly.
And make the pellets. That's good.
Yep.
And again, we're always looking for efficiency. If you're going to use Maine's natural resources to make a product, do it economically, and that improves the economy, creates more jobs. It's all about making it economically feasible.
Yeah, sure does. We've actually got 2 truck drivers who basically haul just this bark product in here, so if we weren't burning it, I guess they wouldn't be hauling it in here.
Yeah.
So as the product flows through, the lighter pieces kind of stay in the middle of the dryer drum because they're by nature light, and they fly right through. So if they're light and dry, they go right through quickly, and if they're heavy and wet, they stay in a little longer. On average, the material spends about 10 minutes in the dryer. This particular dryer is 14 feet in diameter by 60 feet long. At the end of the dryer, all the material falls out into a drop box and then into an auger that goes into our hammer mill.
And what happens in the hammer mill again?
A hammer mill basically hammers the material through a set of screens that it reduces the size distribution. Okay. It makes a smaller, finer product that makes a better pellet.
Yeah. Because you got to get it down to a certain size in order to get to really bind and then last.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the smaller the particle sizes are, the better the durability is on your pellets, and the fewer fines you'll have in your bag.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's this?
This is it's a cyclone. It actually separates, so when the material goes through our hammer mill, it actually is evacuated by air. So we have a fan that sucks the material right to the top of this 60-foot cyclone, and then the air continues on, and the material drops down in the cyclone. Next to our cyclone, we have a new dust collector that we just put in that really helps us keep the dust down in the area. Once the material comes through our cyclone here, it travels up some incline augers. These are 24-inch augers that travel about 200 feet up to the top of a set of silos. These silos give us a little bit of production backup time, so we don't have to run right out of the dryer to our pellet mills. We can stockpile some material in our silos and be able to run even if we're not running the dryer.
Okay, so these are silos right in front of us, and there look to be, 2 of them, or is that 3?
There's 2 silos here, and then next to them is a big dust collector that actually helps us cool our pellets. It's a big fan and dust collector that helps us cool our pellets inside. Well,
when the pellets come out of there, or when after it comes out of the dryer, those have got to be fairly warm.
The sawdust is warm when it comes out of the dryer. It does cool a little bit as it travels along the augers and into the silos, but it's still around 100 degrees when it gets in the silos.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Our dryer runs at about 500 degrees on the inlet and about 200 degrees on the outlet, so as the material travels through, it cools the dryer a little bit. As we need sawdust, or furnish as we call it in the business, to make the pellets with, we draw from the 4 augers below the silos that lead into our 4 pellet mills. The pellet mills all run a little bit differently, and the feed rate is a little different for all of them depending on how they're running. So the operators can control that inside.
So all the raw materials are processed out here, and then they're turned into pellets inside.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm guessing that's where we're headed.
We're headed inside.
All right. Today's episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is on location at Corinth Pellets. General Manager Mark Parent has given me the tour. We're heading inside where the actual pellets are made. Meet you there in a moment. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Many Mainers heat with pellets. It's a relatively new addition to Maine's forest products industry, making great use of sawmill residue to warm our homes. This is how they're made. General Manager Mark Parent and I have just stepped in the door of the plant. Directly in front of me, there are 4 large machines that look like hair dryers the size of a Volkswagen. The sawdust goes in there and gets compressed into pellets through massive dies. They pop out of the bottom onto a moving, shaking conveyor belt. The shaking makes it more obvious if there's something going wrong. Beyond the dies, the pellets are cooled, then they go around the corner to where they are automatically bagged, and then a big robot arm grabs each bag and stacks it perfectly on a pallet, then wraps each pallet to keep all the moisture completely out. Beyond that, stacks and stacks of pellets like you've never seen before in your life.
We're currently running 4 pellet mills from a company called Andritz. These are the Cadillac, so to speak, of the pellet industry. Each machine is capable of about 4 tons of pellets per hour. As the pellets are made, sawdust comes in through our augers. It feeds down through what's called a center feeder. The center feeder pushes it down into the front, so the sawdust actually travels down in this direction and comes right in through the front of the pellet mill.
Yeah, and these are the finished pellets coming out right down here at the bottom.
Yes, they are, yep.
Okay.
They're finished pellets, but they're still way too hot right now. They need to go through a cooling process in order to really get good durability. Inside these pellet mills are rolls that press the material through a die. The dies are 26 inches around, and the rolls, like I said, press about 4 tons of pellets per hour right through them. Pellets, after they come out of the pellet mills, travel along a vibrating conveyor. We like this application for a vibrating conveyor because the operator can actually see the pellets being made. If there's any adjustments that need to be made to the machine to make a higher quality pellet, the operator can see it right away, and we can dump the bad pellets out along the line here, and we can go back to making good pellets.
Yeah, okay. How often does it happen? How often does it happen that you see bad pellets coming out?
If our moisture changes at all, it can affect how puffy the pellets are. Not very often. Less than 1% of the time, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe twice a shift, somebody will come down and say, "Oh, let's send these pellets back for redo." As they come off the end of the vibrating conveyor here, they hit our first screener. We actually screen twice, which is more than most manufacturers do. So the screen actually removes fine sawdust
all that
and dust.
The stuff you don't want in the bag.
The stuff you don't want in the bags. From there, it goes into an elevator, which takes it to the top of our pellet cooler. Our cooler is basically just big screens on the side, and they have airflow that comes through. So as they go in, they're about 150 degrees. And when they come out, they get right down to ambient temperature. So right from that process right there, they get cooled.
What are you cooling it with?
Air.
Air, yeah.
Yep. We can take a walk in here if you
dare.
Feel these pellets coming out here. They're quite warm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They travel up the elevator. They go in this pellet cooler, which is just a screen basically, with some airflow through it. We have a giant vacuum type system that sucks air through them. As the cold air gets sucked through them, they cool off.
Yep.
So in a matter of 10 feet here, they cool down to a room temperature.
Oh, we feel. Oh, jeez. Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick it happens.
Because I could barely touch those pellets coming out there. And already these are cool.
Yep, it's a good system. It's low tech, but a little airflow through the screens, and the pellets get cooled down to the right temperature.
No, earlier you were talking about judging the quality of a pellet, especially by how shiny it was on the outside.
Sure.
You can see yourself as a reflection in these.
Yeah, these have a good sheen on them on the outside, and they have a good snap to them when you try and break them.
Yep.
That means they're going to be durable, and you can tell just by how blonde they are that the material is really clean. From here, we have a couple silos we can store pellets with. If we're not running our bagging operation, we can store about 60 tons of pellets, which is about one shift's worth. We can make about 200 tons of pellets in a day.
Oh, wow. And these days you have enough customers for all that.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we inside the warehouse here, we have lots of pellet storage. We try and stack them as high as we can, save some space.
So each one of these pallets is a ton?
Yes, it is. Yep.
I should know. That's how I buy them.
From the silos, we go to our bagging operation. Yeah. We've got a Hamer bagger. It's a form, fill, and seal bagger that actually, the bags are made by the machine. So we don't buy bags, we just buy film, and the film is made by the bagger. Mm-hmm. Pellets travel up into a hopper.
Yep.
We have two volumetric weighers that weigh the pellets, 40 pounds. They drop them into the bag. As the bags come through, the bagging machine actually seals the top.
Well, I think one of the most impressive things is just how automated it is. You move the raw materials around with loaders and stuff, but for the most part, this thing runs itself.
A lot of it's just traveling in augers and, all speed-sensitive sensors, and it kind of runs itself. You know, you got to be around to make sure nothing goes wrong, but a lot of it's automated.
When something goes wrong, is there a loud klaxon horn that warns everybody?
There isn't a horn, but there certainly is a supervisor on the radio.
Yeah.
So as we start our bagging line back up here, we see the bags flow across the conveyor belt. Operator just makes sure the bags are feeding correctly, and once they're feeding in correctly, they go on a bag flattener. It flattens the bag to make them easier to stack. From there, they travel down a conveyor to a robotic stacker. The stacker stacks the bags in a certain pattern that's programmed for on the pallets.
Look at that thing go. It's like, how does it know?
It just knows.
Yeah.
It just knows. It's stacked millions and millions of bags and has never complained once.
Yeah.
That robot's actually only running at about 40% capacity.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how fast it moves when it's running.
So that thing can go faster,
yes,
twice as fast as it's going right now.
Yes.
I mean, one bag, stacked. One bag, stacked. That's how fast it's loading this pallet,
yes,
and that's only half speed.
Yeah, the stacker in this bagging line is capable of bagging. If we had 2 mills like this, we could bag all the pellets right here.
Yeah.
So the bagger's twice as capable as our mill is.
Wow. It's going to be hard for me to figure out what I'm most impressed by.
This robot is always a big hit on every tour.
I bet it is.
Everybody thinks we should come up with a name for it, but we haven't come up with one yet.
I guess what probably galls me the most is that machine is doing all that work to stack them up, but when it gets to the back of my house, I have to one by one carry them down a hill and behind the house and stack them by hand. Yeah, it just doesn't seem fair.
It definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't. You're doing a lot more work than the robot is, that's for sure.
I'll say.
Then this is our shipping and receiving area. We currently have 2 docks. We're looking at adding another one to make the shipping a little easier. Most trucks carry 24 tons of pallets. We load about 10 trucks a day.
Mm-hmm. And do they go to any other distribution centers for major chains, or when they leave here, they go to their final destination?
Most go right to their final destination. We like dealing with individuals rather than corporations, so we sell mostly to
good for you.
mom and pop stores, and
yeah,
that's our personal favorite. I'd rather have 1,000 small customers than 2 big ones.
Yeah. What I'm looking at now is a whole warehouse full of nothing but stacked pellets and some machinery in the back that's bagging them up. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, this warehouse is pretty full right now. It's been like I said, it's been a warm fall, and our production's been outstanding. Our mill is really producing some pellets right now, and we're getting ready for winter.
All right. Well, Mark, is there anything you'd like the public to know that I didn't cover yet?
No, I just we're a local company that supports local businesses, and we'd like the opportunity to do business with all the customers we can, and we do sell pellets right here at the mill. Available 24 hours a day. So if you drive up in, you can get pellets here.
And it's Maine's natural resource being used right here at home.
That's what we like.
My thanks to General Manager Mark Parent for the tour of Corinth Pellets in Corinth. Today's show certainly cleared up a lot of mystery for me. Now, if I want to judge the quality of a bag of pellets, I know enough to look at the dusty residue on the inside of the bag. The less dust, the better the pellets. They should be shining, and they should snap crisply in your hand. Remember, if you want to share the show with someone you know who burns pellets, all episodes are archived on the web at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. This is Sports Radio 929 The Ticket.